A woman sets one place at a table that for over 40 years had two places. And even after, say, 8 months of her altered ritual, her heart still aches. Will she ever feel joy again? The envelope is opened with so much hope. Surely the director of admissions has good news, but the letter begins, "We regret to inform you." What will the future hold now? He took his marriage vows with every intention to be a faithful husband, and now that he's stepped beyond the bounds of fidelity, can he ever return to the circle of trust that he and his spouse once had? These formative stories are the stories of our great human need. The Bible is full of the human need for restoration, redemption, deliverance, resurrection. As the Hebrew slaves longed for freedom when they were in Egypt, so we long for deliverance from the challenges that threaten to enslave us to sorrow, to fear, to hopelessness, that it threatened to enslave us with addiction, greed, or pride. The Exodus, with this central image of the crossing of the Red Sea, is the central act. This is the keystone, the foundational story. This is our origin story. This is our origin story. All the other stories in the Bible are subplots and additions to this one great story. The entire story of Jesus, his wandering, his teaching, his healing, his crucifixion and death and resurrection, is this story. Our God is the God that sets us free from what the world does to enslave us and break us. Our God is the God that sets us free from what we do to break and enslave ourselves. Our God is the God that sets us free. And on this road trip, this summer series, we're exploring all the different ways we meet God on the road. And today we're looking at the freedom of the road trip. To use biblical language, let's start with what, as today's story would say, enslaves us. What enslaves us? We have ideas about freedom that actually enslave us, and one of those is stuff. You heard that happen in this story. It's a long, multi-chapter, multi-book story, but I really liked this one because the Egyptians have the hot cars. The Egyptians were the terror of the whole Middle East, not just Israel, but all of the Egyptian enemies were terrified. They had these light, fast platforms from which they could shoot arrows. They were indomitable. And they were trapped in thinking that the latest, greatest, slickest, coolest machinery was going to do the job for them. It was devastating to their enemies psychologically, but in this story, the great machinery of the chariot, its wheeled speed, becomes a disadvantage. The Lord clogged the wheels, probably because the dry land wasn't quite that dry, or it was dry enough for people to walk on, but not dry enough to drive on. Not only that, but you can just imagine that those poor chariot drivers, they're not going to abandon their chariots. That's a huge, expensive piece of machinery. Their military equipment put them right in the path of the returning waters, which they realized too late. And so their love of fast, exotic machinery is part of what did them in, which is kind of too bad, because I love cool cars. The Hebrew slaves also had ideas of freedom, and then they changed their minds later when it turned out that freedom meant no stuff, not even a backpack with food in it. And that's when they took to muttering, murmuring, and moaning, and you can read that in chapter 17. This is the illusion of freedom offered to us by stuff. Call it consumerism, call it I want-ism, call it the desire to feel safe because we have stuff around us. And although money will buy you a more comfortable seat on a plane, and that's not nothing, it won't fill your soul, will it? That's why we pack light on a trip. We'll talk about that in a couple of weeks. we get led off course with some of our ideas about freedom. And one of the ideas about freedom that enslaves us is this idea that there should be no restrictions, because we equate no restrictions with complete freedom. There's a story about Daniel Boone, who apparently decided that if he could see the smoke from a neighbor's fire, the neighborhood was too crowded and he would move on. We do see it everywhere. Car commercial, the world has boundaries, ignore them. Outback Steakhouse, no rules, just right. NFL video game, no refs, no rules, no mercy. Why are we so seduced by the siren song of standard-free living? No standards. Nothing to control your behavior. When I was a kid, we had a dog that could never be taken outside without a leash. His name was Schnitzel the Schnoodle. My mom named him. He was half Schnauzer, half Poodle, and all trouble. And we lived in the Midwest where we had huge yards and nobody had any fences. And when Schnitzel got out, did he ever go? One day he was hit by a car during one of his adventures in freedom. What he thought was freedom for him was death. Journeying with Jesus helps us turn away from the headlong, heedless pursuit of whatever it is we think we want in the moment, that we want it now, that is going to do harm to us or others. That's the road of spiritual death, and it will kill you, body and soul. Sometimes we think that a sort of rebelliousness will set us free, and there's some merit to that idea. But what I'm talking about here is not the Star Wars idea of the great rebellion against the oppressive evil empire. That kind of rebellion is necessary. But in the Bible, rebellion is always human rebellion against God. In the Bible, rebellion is never a fight for justice or freedom. It's always turning away from God. You know, Mount Sinai, the golden calf. Moses and his temper tantrum when he gets down there and sees the people have already given up on God, and he throws those tablets down. Now he has to hike back up the mountain and get a copy. With God, there's true freedom. And here's what I mean by that. With God, there's freedom from what has been done to us. We are all wounded people. We don't know what other people have lived through, what their childhoods were, how the world has beaten them up. The Hebrew slaves were not imagining their oppression. They were oppressed. It's everywhere. It's so common we hardly see it. And it is pervasive and persistent and powerful. There's an old joke about a secretary, a paralegal, and a partner. Do you have your sympathy laugh on, queued up? Okay, thanks. And they're, a partner in the big law firm, and they're at lunch, and one of them reaches over and rubs the lamp that's on their lunch table, and out pops a genie. And he looks at the three of them and says, well, I only offer 3 wishes, so each one of you gets one. So me first, says the secretary. I want to be in the Bahamas, driving a speedboat without a care in the world. And poof, he's gone. And the paralegal says, me next. I want to be in Hawaii, relaxing on a beach with a personal masseuse. An endless supply of Mai Tais and the love of my life. And poof, she's gone. And the genie turns to the partner. He says, you're next. And the partner says, I want those 2 back after lunch. Some people really do work in conditions that are nearly or actually criminal. People really do get hurt and damaged and even permanently broken by the evils of others and the evils of institutions. Maybe that's happened to you. One of the things that we get with freedom in God is freedom from what has been done, not just to us, but by us. On Mount Sinai, well, Moses was up trying to negotiate with God for his people. The Hebrews are down at the bottom, worshiping the golden calf and muttering about how that manna is not as good as the meat they used to get in Egypt. And they become enslaved all over again by their own longings and their own actions. Some folks believe that if someone's in trouble, it's their own darn fault, and they have no sense of bad luck or ill fortune or calamities that people don't bring on themselves. Some folks can't even imagine the damage they've done and spend their lives trying to escape it. We really do harm to one another, large and small, with our carelessness, our selfishness, and our hard-heartedness. And most of us don't want to look at that, and that's understandable. But that is not the road to freedom that God offers. Exodus, this grand sweeping story, this origin story, reminds us of our deep spiritual need for freedom, both from what has been done to us and what we have done to ourselves and others. So if you're ready for the fabulous road trip of a real life without limits, come on along. We've been called to a certain kind of freedom in Jesus and warned only to avoid using our freedom as an opportunity for self-indulgence or to curtail the freedom of others. Through love, Jesus says, here's how we do it. We become servants to one another spiritually and sometimes literally. There's more freedom in being honest than in pretending to ourselves that we're okay when we're not. There's more freedom in looking for how to give stuff away instead of wanting more. There's more freedom in paying attention to the many who have less than we do instead of being obsessed with those who have more. There's more freedom in living in right relationship with God than in the prison of stuff or self-righteousness or self-centeredness. The formative stories of the Bible speak to our human need for deliverance, redemption, resurrection. As the Hebrew slaves in Egypt longed for freedom, so we long for deliverance from whatever enslaves us. And if that's you today, I have a good word for you. God hears our cries and is inviting us to a road that will liberate us. Like the Hebrews, we have to step out. There was no freedom for the Hebrews that stayed in Egypt. We have to take the steps that lead us forward out onto the road. We choose the road, and God meets us there. In Exodus 14:13, it says, God hasn't forgotten you. In fact, God is leading the way. Keep moving, God says. Don't look back. I'll deliver you. But you need to take the steps that will lead you to your promised land. It's never too late to change your direction or change your mind. I subscribe to a daily spiritual poem by a really talented retired United Methodist pastor, and many days it feeds me in ways I didn't know I needed, and I want to share one of those with you today. And so I offer it as a prayer for us. You can take a breath, close your eyes as you listen, or look at one of our gorgeous stained glass windows. And this is entitled Hold On, from Steve Garnis Holmes. The journey's joy will sometimes fade. The labor will be hard. Hold on, my friend. Hold on. The cynical will mock your faith. The angry will assault your place, and doubts will rise. Hold on. The road is rough. The goal is far. The shouts of war, the jailer's door will echo loud. Hold on to what you know and how you've been brought through and what you're cradled in. Stay true, my friend. Hold on. You won't achieve great milestones, but don't give up on kindness. Hold on, my friend. Hold on. Our hands are joined. Our hearts are one. These millions with you struggle on, and you are held. Hold on, my friend. Hold on. May it be so for us today. Amen.